She is not giving up. Not tonight. Not ever. Bill thinks the fight is over, that Hayley will bow her head and accept the weight he's put on her shoulders. But what he doesn't see is the fire building behind her silence. Every moment he tries to push her down only feeds her determination to rise higher. This is not the story of defeat, it's the story of a woman who refuses to be erased. And the clash that will test both her strength and his power. The tension between Hayley and Bill has been brewing for a long time. Almost too long, like a storm waiting behind heavy clouds. From the outside, it might have looked like a normal relationship to people locked in the push and pull of daily life, but those who paid attention could see the cracks forming. Bill was always the one to push harder, to control the rhythm, to keep Hayley under the shadow of his decisions. But Hayley was never truly silent. She was observing, waiting, learning. Every word Bill spoke, every demand he made, every attempt to cut her down built something inside her that was stronger than fear. She knew there would come a day when her patience would end, when the quiet strength she carried would turn into action. And that day arrived in this very episode. When Bill confronted her, he expected submission. He thought Hayley would lower her eyes, maybe shed a tear, maybe let him win the argument by simply walking away. But instead, she stood still. She didn't tremble, she didn't cry, she didn't raise her voice. She simply looked at him with a kind of calm that unsettled him more than any shout could. And in that silence, Bill realized something dangerous. She was no longer the same person he had kept under control for so long. She had found her edge, and she was ready to use it. This is what makes the moment so important, not just for the story, but for what it represents. Hayley's refusal to step back is not about a single disagreement. It's about reclaiming every piece of herself that was pushed aside. She is fighting for dignity, for the right to make her own choices, for the right to be seen as more than someone's possession. The way she holds her ground sends a message that echoes far beyond the walls of that confrontation, that she is done playing small, and she is done being silent. Bill, on the other hand, cannot process this shift easily. His identity is tied to control, and when control slips through his fingers, he becomes unstable. In this episode, you can feel the panic behind his anger. He raises his voice not because he is powerful, but because he is afraid. Afraid that the grip he once had on Hayley is gone forever. Afraid that the balance of power is tipping away from him. And in that fear, we see the weakness of a man who has built his strength on the foundation of someone else's silence. As the confrontation unfolds, it becomes clear that Hayley is not only fighting Bill. She is fighting every moment in her life when she was told to be quiet, to be obedient, to be less. This is why her defiance feels so powerful. It is not reckless, it is deliberate. She has reached a point where surrender would mean losing herself completely, and she is not willing to do that. The fire inside her burns brighter with every word Bill throws her way, and instead of breaking down, she grows taller in spirit. This transformation is what makes her stand unforgettable. The audience is left leaning forward, almost holding their breath, because they know this is no ordinary disagreement. This is the breaking point. This is the line drawn in the sand. Either Hayley falls back into the shadow Bill has cast over her for so long, or she steps out into her own light and forces him to face a truth he cannot accept, that she will no longer be controlled, no longer be silenced, and no longer be afraid. What makes this clash between Hayley and Bill so unforgettable is not just the shouting or the words thrown in anger, it's the unspoken battle underneath. Every stare, every pause, every small movement becomes a weapon in this fight. Bill relies on force. His presence fills the room. His words hit hard. But beneath all that noise, Hayley is building a different kind of power. She doesn't need to match his tone, because she has something stronger than anger. She has conviction. And conviction does not shout. It does not beg. It stands like stone, steady and unshakable. In this part of the episode, the air feels heavier, almost as if time itself slows down around them. Bill paces, his hands clenched, his voice rising with every accusation. But Hayley stands still. The contrast is striking. He burns energy like a wildfire, but she is like the earth, solid, rooted, and willing to move. This is where the audience feels the shift. The power in the room is no longer his, though he doesn't realize it yet. It belongs to her, to the woman who refuses to give in, even when pushed to the edge. And it's not just about Hayley and Bill as individuals. The show uses their confrontation to shine a light on something bigger. How often do people like Hayley, strong, capable, but forced into silence, find themselves trapped under someone else's control? How often do they wait quietly for the moment when they can finally fight back? This episode becomes a mirror, showing us that sometimes strength doesn't arrive with a roar. It arrives with a refusal to bow down. That refusal is louder than any scream, more powerful than any demand. Bill tries every tactic he knows. He accuses her of betrayal. He questions her loyalty. He even throws reminders of the past at her, memories designed to make her feel small, to drag her back into the shadows where he thinks she belongs. But Hayley doesn't flinch. That's the moment the audience realizes she has already made her choice. She is not here to argue over who is right or wrong. She is here to claim herself, to take back what was stolen from her in the quietest of ways: her confidence, her dignity, her freedom. What makes Hayley stand so chilling is the calmness she carries. Most people, when cornered, explode or break. But Hayley does neither. She delivers her truth with a steady gaze and a steady voice. And in that calmness lies her victory. Bill cannot understand it, and the more he pushes, the more powerless he feels. You can almost see the cracks forming in his mask of authority. His anger turns desperate, because deep down he senses what's happening. He is losing not just the fight, but the hold he has clung to for so long. The episode lets the silence between them stretch longer than expected, and that silence speaks louder than any dialogue. It's in the silence that Hayley wins. It's in the silence that Bill realizes he is no longer the one pulling the strings. For the viewers, this silence is electric, because it feels like the world has paused to witness her transformation. The woman who was once underestimated has now become unstoppable. And yet, the show is careful not to give everything away. It leaves us unsettled, questioning what will happen next. Because while Hayley's strength shines brighter than ever, Bill is not the type to accept defeat quietly. He may have been shaken, but men like him don't just walk away. They plan, they scheme, they look for new ways to strike back. That's the danger hanging in the air as the scene fades, the knowledge that this fight is far from over. The beauty of this storytelling is that it doesn't just entertain. It leaves the audience thinking. It forces us to ask, how much is too much? How long can someone be pushed before they finally push back? And when that moment comes, what will it cost them? For Hayley, the cost is high, but the reward is greater. She is no longer afraid. She has broken free in spirit, and that freedom cannot be taken back, no matter what Bill tries next. By the end of this section, we don't just see Hayley as a character in a story. We see her as a symbol of defiance, of courage, of strength that refuses to be silenced. And in that moment, she becomes more than just a woman standing against Bill. She becomes a voice for anyone who has ever stood in the shadows, waiting for their chance to step into the light. By the time we reach this part of the episode, the conflict is no longer just about words. It has transformed into something larger, something raw. The air between Hayley and Bill feels like a battlefield. Every glance exchanged is a blow, every silence a weapon. This is where the show pulls the audience in closer, forcing us to look not only at their fight, but also at what drives each of them to keep standing their ground. It is not a simple argument anymore. It is war without swords, and both of them are bleeding in ways we can't see. Bill, at this stage, begins to crumble under the weight of his own fear. His voice is still loud, his posture still commanding, but if you look closely, you can see the desperation in his eyes. He cannot afford to lose, not because of pride alone, but because his entire sense of power is built on keeping Hayley in line. If she walks away from him undefeated, then everything he has worked to control will collapse like glass shattering on the floor. That is why his words grow sharper, almost cruel, designed not to argue but to wound. He drags up old secrets. He twists past mistakes. He spits out reminders of every moment where Hayley once faltered. To him, this is a strategy to remind her of her weakest points so that she forgets her strength. But Hayley is no longer the woman who trembled under those reminders. This time, she listens without breaking. She takes the blows and lets them pass through her because she knows that the person Bill is trying to reach no longer exists. The timid, uncertain version of herself died the moment she decided not to bow down. And in that moment, she gains an edge over him that he cannot understand. She is not fighting to prove herself to him anymore. She is fighting to prove herself to herself. That difference changes everything. The episode makes this shift painfully clear in the way Hayley carries herself. Her words are not long speeches. They are measured, sharp, and heavy with meaning. One line from her lands harder than 10 from him. And when she speaks, there is no shaking in her tone. Instead, there is a calm certainty, like a woman who already knows the outcome of this fight. That is what terrifies Bill more than anything. For the first time, he is looking at Hayley not as someone to control, but as someone who has slipped completely beyond his reach. What makes this scene so powerful is how it balances two extremes: Bill's unraveling rage and Hayley's unshakable calm. The louder he gets, the quieter she becomes, and yet it is her silence that dominates the space. You can almost feel the audience shifting in their seats, realizing that the tide has turned. Bill may think he is tightening the noose, but in reality, he is the one trapped. He is trapped in his own anger, his own fear, his own refusal to accept that Hayley no longer belongs to him. At the heart of Section 3 lies the turning point, the moment the viewer realizes there is no going back. Hayley is not just resisting anymore. She is declaring war in her own way. Without lifting a hand, without raising her voice, she has changed the rules of the fight. Bill cannot win this by force, because force no longer works on her. He cannot win this with words, because she has stripped his words of power. And so, he is left with nothing but his own unraveling pride, while she stands stronger with every second that passes. This is also where the show begins planting the seeds of fear for the future. Because as strong as Hayley appears, we know that Bill is not a man who accepts defeat easily. His pride will not allow it. His anger will not forget it. And so, even as we watch Hayley rise, even as we celebrate her victory in this moment, a darker question lingers in the back of our minds. What will Bill do next? How far will he go to reclaim the power slipping through his hands? The danger ahead feels even greater, because now it is not just about control, it is about revenge. And yet, in this very moment, the focus belongs to Hayley. For the first time, she is no longer surviving in the shadows of his control. She is living fully in her own strength. She has faced the storm, and instead of being swept away, she has become the storm. This transformation is not loud, but it is unforgettable. It shows us that true power is not always about shouting the loudest or forcing the hardest. It is about refusing to bend when bending would mean losing who you are. By the end of this section, the audience feels the gravity of the shift. The fight has changed forever. Hayley is no longer a victim of Bill's anger. She is the challenger, the equal, the one who refuses to be erased. And as she stands her ground, with that quiet strength glowing brighter than ever, we know one thing for certain: Bill may still have tricks left to play, but Hayley is not going out without a fight. Not now, not ever. The final stretch of this episode does not explode in chaos the way you might expect. Instead, it smolders slow, deliberate, and dangerous. By now, Bill's voice has cracked under the weight of his fury. The lines he throws at Hayley no longer sound like control. They sound like desperation. He is a man cornered, watching the walls he built around her crumble into dust. Every ounce of authority he once carried now feels hollow, like an echo in an empty room. And yet, he still refuses to let go. That refusal is what makes the closing moments so chilling. Hayley, on the other hand, is a vision of quiet defiance. She does not gloat, she does not smile, and she does not celebrate the small victories in his unraveling. That is not who she is. Her strength lies in something deeper, the knowledge that she no longer needs to prove herself to him. She is not standing there to win his approval or to justify her choices. She is standing there because this is her line in the sand. And once it has been drawn, she knows she can never step back across it. That understanding gives her a calmness that shakes Bill more than any raised voice ever could. What the episode does so brilliantly is to let the tension settle into the silence between them. The audience leans in, waiting for one of them to break. Bill waits for Hayley to flinch, to soften, to show even the smallest sign of hesitation. But she doesn't. Instead, she holds his gaze, steady and unwavering, until the power dynamic is undeniable. For the first time in their story, she is not the one being tested, he is. And he is failing. This is where the show reminds us that true battles are not always fought with fists or weapons. They are fought in moments like this, where one person refuses to bend and the other refuses to accept that refusal. The weight of history, of memory, of unspoken pain fills the space, and the viewers can almost feel the years of tension crashing down in these few minutes. Every insult Bill throws loses its force. Every reminder of the past turns into proof of his fear. And every second that Hayley refuses to move makes her victory more complete. But here is where the danger creeps back in. Because even as Hayley wins this round, the look in Bill's eyes changes. It is no longer the look of a man in control, nor even the look of a man defeated. It is the look of someone plotting. Someone who cannot accept the loss, who cannot live with the humiliation of being outmatched by the person he thought he owned. The audience can sense it. The storm is not over. In fact, it is only beginning. Bill is not walking away with resignation. He is walking away with a seed of vengeance that will grow into something darker, something far more dangerous. The brilliance of this episode lies in how it ends not with resolution, but with uncertainty. Hayley has claimed her moment of strength, but the camera does not let us rest in her victory. Instead, it lingers on Bill's expression, that chilling mixture of rage and calculation. It is a warning. The fight may be won, but the war has only just begun. And as the screen fades, the audience is left with a knot in their chest, wondering how far Bill will go and whether Hayley's newfound strength will be enough to face what comes next. Hayley's journey in this confrontation is not just about survival, it is about transformation. She has turned fear into fire, silence into strength, and submission into defiance. She has faced the man who tried to define her and shown him that she will define herself. That moment, that choice, will ripple through everything that follows. And it is why this episode stands out as a turning point in the season. It is not just another fight. It is the birth of a new Hayley, the one who cannot be broken, the one who will not be silenced, the one who will never go down without a fight. As the credits roll, one question hangs heavy in the air. If Bill was willing to go this far to keep control, what will he do now that it has slipped through his hands? The answer is left dangling, daring the audience to come back for more. Because in the world of this story, victories are never clean, and battles are never final. And as we leave Hayley standing in the silence of her defiance, we know one thing for certain. The fight isn't over, it's only just begun.